So let me know when y'all are ready.
Whenever you are.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this month's Clark Environmentals, Fun with Environment. Today, we're going to talk about fire prevention safety. Our guest speaker today is Mr. Gary Weiss from HEPACO. Hi, Gary. How you doing, buddy?
Doing real good, Jim. Thanks for having me.
With that, I'm going to let Gary introduce himself.
Like Jim said, I'm Gary Weiss. I'm a project manager with HEPACO. But before coming to HEPACO, I've got over 35 years experience in the fire service, ranging in rank from firefighter, paramedic through fire chief. So I've seen a lot in the fire service realm, and I think we're going to have some fun today.
Oh, man. And with that, I'll let you take it over.
Fire service is a unique type of career and a unique job. And the things that we see today, fire safety-wise, have been developed over centuries, realistically. For example, everyone's heard of the Great Chicago Fire, where a bunch of drunks were in a barn and they were harassing a cow, happened to be Mrs. O'Leary's cow, kicked over a lantern and basically burnt down most of Chicago and killed about 300 people. Okay? But what a lot of people don't know is the same day that happened, there was a woods fire in Peshego, Wisconsin, that killed over 1,200 people on the same day. What came out of those fires was just general awareness of fire safety. But then we talk about, like in 1903, there was a theater fire in Chicago called the Iroquois Theater, where 602 people died. Okay, why'd they die? Because of lack of fire prevention. I mean, the Chicago Fire Department, they did a fantastic job saving what the people they saved. But the problem was exit doors. Exit doors that opened inward. So when everybody rushes to door to go out, the door opens inward, they can't get out, and they burn or die of smoke inhalation. So when you look at that, what came out of that? Fire safety code for outward exiting doors in commercial facilities. Think of any store that you go to, what do you see? When you're leaving the store, the door opens outward. That way, if there's a rush on, the door will break open, people can get out. That's what came out of the Iroquois Theater fire. And then, tragically, in 1911, we had another fire at a place called the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, which was basically a sweatshop in New York City. 146, mostly women, died in that fire, and most of them jumped to their death out of windows because it was a sweatshop, and what they did is they locked the doors with chains so the women, when the place caught on fire, couldn't get out.
Let me ask, why would they lock the door?
Because they didn't want the women taking smoke breaks or breaks. They wanted to work. Gotcha. Because they made their money by pieces.
Gotcha.
So if a woman goes out and takes a break and she's out 15 minutes, it may cost them not to make 20 or 30 pieces, which costs the company.
Gotcha.
Okay. So when the fire broke out, obviously it was a shirtwaist factory, so it was a lot of cloth and everything and dust. Fire grew rapidly, and women had no choice but to jump out of windows. Okay, horrible way to go. What came out of that was panic hardware. If you look at any door now in a commercial facility, you see that bar that goes across the bottom, door by doorknob. You push it, and the bar and the door opens. That's called panic hardware. That way, if anyone rushes up against it, it automatically opens. It locks from the outside so people can't get in, but people on the inside can get out in an emergency. Panic hardware came out of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory.
And one of the things I read about that fire was...
And you had your glasses on when you were reading, right?
I know, that's why I don't want to put them on right now. But one of the things I read was, it was the 8th, 9th, and 10th floor, but back then, the fire department only had ladders that went up to the 7th.
Yeah, if you look at, even today, if you look at a standard ladder truck that a fire department has that you see every day on TV, it may have a bucket on the end or maybe a straight stick, they're about 100, 105 feet. And if you figure 10 feet per floor, you think, oh, they go up to 10 floors. That's not true, because the truck has to be back away from the building. You can't be right up next to the building and run a ladder straight up. Truck may be 30 or 40 feet back to the window. So still, we're only looking at the seventh or eighth floor for reading a standard ladder truck, depending on how close you get. And nowadays, look at just change the subject a little bit, but look at a modern high-rise, What do you have in a modern high-rise? You just can't pull up to the building like in New York where you have a building, a small sidewalk, and then a street. In Florida, what do we have? We have these fancy driveways. We have all these palm trees. You know, when we get to a third floor ladder truck because you may be 60, 70 feet back from the building because you can't get that close. So you have to think about that too. And then there was another fire, and this was a, go ahead.
I don't want to, I try to do some homework and learn some things and stuff like that. One of the things I found really disturbing, William Shepard, a reporter at the tragedy, would say, "I've learned a new sound that day, a sound more horrible than description can picture. The thud of speeding, living bodies on the stone sidewalk." And most of these women were immigrants, and a lot of them were young. And it's just a shame that because of this, these fire preventions, and they weren't done already from the beginning. And another thing that falling bodies, one of the things I read was falling bodies made it difficult for the firemen and the ladders to get up to the building.
Same thing.
Because the people were jumping.
Same thing at the World Trade Center.
Mm-hmm.
You know, firefighters couldn't get close. There were actually firefighters killed by bodies landing on them as they were trying to run into the building. But I digress.
No, but I also saw a video of this, and it was a documentary. And to see what was happening, what was going on, there was nothing the fire department could do.
No, there wasn't. Couldn't get to them. And one thing you got to understand is a lot of these disasters where people died, the fire service weren't doing inspections like we do today. That could never happen today because the fire inspector would catch it. And we didn't really, the fire service didn't realize it, but the important thing about the fire service we need to know is we learn from mistakes. We don't repeat mistakes. What's to say if you do the same thing over and over again, you're an idiot? Okay, we don't do that. We learn. For example, in the Coconut Grove nightclub fire, 1942, 200 people died. Okay, what happened in that? Well, they had a revolving door, which kept people from getting out. One thing that came out of that now is revolving doors, the wings collapse to make it an exit, so that won't happen again. Also, there has to be exits on either side of it that people could use, but the wings do collapse. But also at Coconut Grove they had coverings on the walls, paper coverings on the walls that were very flammable. And when that caught fire, it spread the fire rapidly, the smoke, and it caused people to die. What we learned from that, we learned about making material on the walls not flammable, limiting the amount of materials on a wall. If you go to a school today, you walk into a school when they reopen, and you look at the walls of the school, 5 years ago, teachers had posters and everything all over every wall. Now they're limited in the square footage they can put that because of it being flammable. So throughout the history of the United States and fire service, we've learned from these disasters and we've made adjustments. Even today, when something happens, we make adjustments to that.
Two things that I read about the Coconut Grove one was it happened in 42. And at the time, Freon was the extinguisher that they used. But because of the war, the Freon was shipped overseas, and what they ended up using for an extinguishing material was methylene chloride. What is methylene chloride? It's flammable gas. And that's one of the things. The other one, too, was because that revolving door, it kept it sealed, and people were pushing, push, and then all of a sudden, when it was open, there was a rush of oxygen, and the people right there at the front of the door were incinerated.
If you look at any high-rise today, what do we do? What do we do in a high-rise construction? If it has an open area, like you see in these high-rises, have the open corridors, but they're enclosed, so the lobby, you can look all the way up to the roof. There's automatic vents on the roofs that open up in case it fills with smoke. Okay, elevators now drop to the bottom floor when there's a fire where they used to stop on the fire floor. So now elevators, when a fire alarm goes off, all the elevators go to the ground. Fire department use it because we have the special keys.
That's one of the reasons why they said about the air shafts
Right.
and all that in the buildings that I had read was, and I didn't understand what that meant about air shafts popping open to the roof.
Right now, any stairwell in a high-rise building is pressurized. So if you have a fire on the 5th floor and someone leaves the door open exiting, because they're being pressurized, it keeps the smoke out of the stairwell. Because that's where that's the way you have to get in and out of the building. That's the way we go up, and that's the way people come down. And if they're pressurized, it keeps the smoke out. So there's a lot of things that people don't realize about fire safety that's been developed throughout the years. I remember you used to see the hose cabinets in there, had that fire hose in there.
Mm-hmm.
If there was a fire, they say turn on, had a little stupid red plastic nozzle. Well, what happened is those weren't being inspected regularly by the building, and when the fire department, when a civilian used it, we won't use that hose in the fire department, we'll put our own hose on. But when the civilian was using it, it was rotten. So what did we do? We told them they don't have to put hoses in there. Just put a fire extinguisher in there, leave it open, and we'll just hook our hoses to it. Because we're going to use our hoses anyway. Okay? But there's a couple other little things we should talk about. Okay, fire extinguishers are designed as a first response for people to use. If you look at a fire extinguisher, there's a pin. I'm not going to pull this one because it's sealed. Okay, so you pull the pin, you take the nozzle, you aim it at the base of the fire, not the fire itself, at the bottom of the fire, and you sweep it back and forth, putting the fire out. And we actually have an acronym for that. It's called PASS, P-A-S-S. Pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. Okay, that's PASS. So if you remember that, you can use a fire extinguisher.
That's why in that, I think with the Coconut Grove one, they had 6 fire extinguishers, which were a foam, and the problem is the fires went to the ceiling.
Right.
And they were almost useless. Fire extinguishers were almost useless.
So there's multiple types of fire, A, B, C, and D. Everyone knows what they are. But the most fire, like in this room, is an A fire, ordinary combustibles, and they use a multi-purpose fire extinguisher. Obviously, there are some water fire extinguishers out there for certain areas. There's foam fire extinguishers. There is CO2 fire extinguishers, and then there's special fire extinguishers for flammable metals like magnesium and things.
A grease fire. Okay, you're the expert. A grease fire. What's the best way to put out a grease
If you
fire?
have a pot on stove, if you have a pot on fire on your stove, the best way to put it on is to put a lid on it. Okay, there's something called the fire triangle. Okay, it has heat, fuel, and oxygen. You remove any one of that part of the triangle, the fire goes out. Okay, so you have a grease fire. Okay, the fire is burning on your pot on the stove. You put a lid over it. Do? You starve it for oxygen. The fire goes out. Okay, you have a house fire. You see the firefighters come with water. What are we doing? We're cooling it. We're removing the heat. Fire goes out. Okay, that's how you put out a fire. You have a gasoline fire. Well, actually, gasoline floats on top of water, right? We all know that. So you can't put water on it because it's not going to work. So what do? You put foam on it. You put foam on it. Foam covers it, smothers it. So it's just common sense stuff how to do it.
Don't throw a rag on a grease fire.
Or don't throw water on it. I give you another example of firefighting that people don't realize. Because they'll see a fire truck pull up on a fire, the guys get out and all their gear and everything, and they break windows and cut holes in roofs and stuff. Why are we doing that? Because people think we're doing a lot of extra damage. There's reasons we do that, and I'm going to give you just a short Reader's Digest version of that. Why do we cut holes in the roof? Because heat rises. We have to go in that building to rescue you and put the fire out. We're not superhuman. Our coats, a perfectly designed firefighter coat, brand new, that's never absorbed any heat, will protect me for about 12 seconds if I'm totally immersed in fire. But what's happened before that 12 seconds? The rubber or silicone on my air mask can melt my face. So we're in trouble. It's not made for us. It's just basically to protect us. It's not a proximity suit. It's just basically to protect us. So if we cut a hole in the roof, we let the heat out. Okay. In Florida, we're lucky because we have great weather and we have air conditioning, but they build our houses so tight that air can't get in like in the old days. So what happens is that heat and fire build up inside the house. It eats up the oxygen until it gets to a smoldering stage. Then we come in, open up a door, oxygen rushes in, Backdraft. You seen the movie Backdraft?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you see. It blows up and kills firefighters. So what do? We cut a hole in the roof. We let the oxygen in from the top down. It doesn't backdraft. It just lights off. That's why. Why we break windows? We got to let the smoke and heat out. Let it up high, not low. Knock the screen out. People open up windows to let smoke out, but they leave the screen in there. The smoke is thicker than the screen. Not doing any good. So take the screen out too.
Gotcha.
Stuff people don't realize.
Gotcha. Wow.
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, firefighting, fire prevention is a science. It truly is. When you look at the hydraulics that we have to know to flow water through the hoses and the formulas that the driver has to know like that, if you look at the officer in the fire truck, that when he gets off, he has 10 or 15 seconds to make life-saving and life-determining decisions on that fire. If you look at the average firefighter that's crawling into a building wearing about 100 pounds of equipment, dragging a hose that's flowing water, is pushing back against him at about 100 pounds per square inch. Okay, that takes a lot out of you. Air bottles are good for about 30 minutes. They're 45 minutes to an hour bottles, but that's if you're breathing normally. We breathe fast, because we're working hard. 30 minutes, you got to get out, or you're in trouble.
Let me ask, hate to get into it, but you've been at the game for a long time.
Sure.
What's the worst one fire that you've ever been to? Maybe a couple.
As a young firefighter, I went to a building fire where 7 kids were burned to death. And they were all together hugging each other when we found them all together. That was pretty bad.
Is that from smoke or?
Well, it was smoke and fire. Yeah.
As far as preventing that, it is
Smoke detectors.
That was the main thing, smoke detectors.
I went on a fire years ago. Unfortunately, the man passed away in the fire. He had 7 smoke detectors in his house. Not one of them had a battery. You know what a smoke detector without a battery is? A piece of artwork. Okay? Smoke detectors save lives. I cannot stress that. If you don't have a working smoke detector in your house, get one. They're not expensive. Now, give you little hints about smoke detectors. This is very important for everybody to know. Most smoke detectors in new houses are hardwired into the house and have a battery backup. If your smoke detector just starts chirping every now and then, like chirp, 10 seconds later chirp, change the battery. Most smoke detectors have a little piece of radioactive material in there. It sets out a screen, and then when that screen is broken, it sets the smoke detector on. But what happens when you have a smoke detector in your ceiling? What does it collect in that smoke detector? Dust. So when you're vacuuming your house, take the hose attachment and vacuum out your smoke detector about once a month to get that dust out of there. That'll keep you from having a false alarm.
And nowadays, I mean, the house we're in, we had put smoke detectors in different locations of the house.
Right.
And nowadays, you can go get them, kids and a couple others. They have a 10-year life battery.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, that's 10 years of your life. Now, you'll probably never be in that house for 10 years, but just think about it.
Right. Just a couple of short things additionally about fire safety in the house. This is important. First of all, make sure you have family escape drills. If you tell your kids if the smoke alarm goes off, this is where you go. We're all going to meet at the mailbox. We're all going to meet at the tree, whatever. Tell them not to go back in. Don't go back in to get your dog. Don't go back in to get your dog. That's what firefighters are for. We'll go back in and get you. Can't tell you how many people have died because they went back in to get a piece of property and they died. Okay. If you're cooking and you're using grease, make sure you have a lid right there so if it catches on fire, you can put a lid on it. Okay. Make sure everybody knows what a fire extinguisher is. It's a fire extinguisher. And don't put a fire extinguisher where it could not get to. I've seen people mount their fire extinguishers next to their stove. They say the stove catches on fire, I got a fire extinguisher right there. Yeah, but the fire's going to be going around the smoke around the fire extinguisher. It's not going to do you no good. If you have a multi-story house, you need to have a smoke detector at the top of the stairwell. Remember, smoke rises. So not in the bedrooms, at the top of the stairwell.
Would it be good for, if you're doing something like that, moving into a new house, maybe calling the fire department, have them come out and do an inspection?
Most fire departments will do that for free, yes. And then the last thing, and another thing is, sleep with your doors closed. Do not go to bed with your door open, because the fire smoke is deadly. Your door is going to keep it out. You're going to get woke up. A lot of times the smoke is going to start coming into your room, and you're not going to wake up. So keep your doors closed when you go to bed, especially your kids. Because I just can't impress. I can't, So having ways out, having exit drills in the home, having a meeting place outside, working smoke detectors, and then common sense. I can't tell you the fires I went to where someone lit a candle right next to the drapes. I don't know, but it's common sense stuff. It's not rocket science, okay? It doesn't take Elon Musk and SpaceX to go to the moon, go to the space station if it's not raining. We just need to use common sense on this, just like the fire service does. In the Iroquois Theater, we learned about exit doors. Triangle Shirtwaists, we learned about locking exits. The Coconut Grove, we learned about revolving doors and wall coverings. I could go on. The MGM Grand Fire, where a lot of people died, there were people that died. What caused that fire was at casinos, they pump oxygen into the gambling area because the people get more oxygen, they gamble more, and they drink more. Well, what does fire thrive on? Oxygen. Okay, so now we've got controls for that if alarm goes off, the oxygen gets shut off. It's just simple things like that, just common sense stuff. There was a tragedy in San Francisco where a young Asian girl was run over by a fire truck. She was covered by foam mostly. It was that Asian airliner that came in and landed short of the runway and crashed. Mm-hmm. Well, the firefighters did the right thing. They put their trucks where they had to, but they didn't have thermal imaging cameras on the trucks. And now they do. So the thermal imaging camera gives you a heads-up display on the windshield of these firefighter craft trucks. They would have seen that girl through the foam, and they wouldn't have run her over and killed her. She survived the crash and got killed by being run over by a fire truck. Wow. Firefighters today carry thermal imaging cameras with us, so we can look through smoke and find you. Matter of fact, when I was the fire chief here in Mulberry, I bought a thermal imaging camera for the fire department. Jim was having a problem with his burner here, and I came over with a thermal camera, and we scanned his burner, and we were able to see where it was clogged. Yep. And that probably saved him thousands of dollars of having that fixed. Well, that's great for Jim. I saved him a couple $1,000s. I cannot tell you the amount of lives that have been saved by a thermal imaging camera. They're worth their weight in gold.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you. Especially, I want to thank you, Gary, for doing all that. I do want to end up by saying to all the essential people that are out there right now during this coronavirus time, thank you very much for doctors, nurses, firemen, police, etc., who are putting their lives on the line all the time for us. Hopefully we'll get this thing done quicker than the extended period of time they're talking about and all the lives that they've saved. Once again, I want to thank Gary here for coming in and talking about prevention, about the major fires that we've had, as well as just plain old household fires, how to prevent things, how to stop things. And thank you again. Once again, if you've got any questions, you've got any topics you want to see, you want to hear from, etc., go to CEI@ClarkEnvironmental.com and let us know. Thank you very much. Stay tuned every month. We're going to do it from now till our 30th anniversary in April. Thank you.